Have you ever dreamt of being trapped in an endless shopping mall that feels oddly familiar? Well, you wouldn't be alone. In 2021, a strange subreddit emerged where thousands of users described the same surreal place featuring looping hallways, flickering lights, and unsettling rules. No one knows where it started or why so many remember it. So today, we explore the shared dream phenomenon and the strange subreddit known as TheMallWorld. This is Red Web. Welcome back, Task Force, to another episode of Red Web, the podcast all about unsolved mysteries, true crime, and the paranormal. I am your resident mystery enthusiast, Trevor Collins, and joining me hearing this internet case for the very first time, Alfredo Diaz.
It's gotta be mind-numbing to just be in a place where it's endless and there's no sense of direction whatsoever. But also, how can a place like that exist, except for in your mind?
Indeed. Good questions. You're laying the foundation for things we're going to explore today. But man, am I excited to be back on an online mystery. It is where we cut our teeth. It is our bread and butter. We love exploring online mysteries. It's one of our favorites. And this one is super unique. We've covered unique subreddits in the past. You know, in the past we did the Internet Files 1 and 2, where they're kind of like smaller bites. r/Martin was this really interesting city where people were experiencing all sorts of things. And, you know, when you do an online mystery, it's the question of, is it an ARG? Is it made up? Is there something else here? And I got pulled into the TheMallWorld not too long ago where it just started popping up in my algorithm. And I'm so fascinated by the concept of shared dreams. And so that's really going to be our angle on this one. You know, as we dive in, I do want to say that we love exploring the mysterious. That's what we do here on Red Web. We really want to peek behind the veil of what's happening, whether it be a case, a mystery, a really interesting premise. But I love that we have real and rational conversations around it. We're not just going to believe it straight out.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to question things.
Absolutely. We got to poke and prod. And that's what is going to have to happen with this one, because when you're online, people could just say whatever they want. They could just post.
It's just people just post, man, and there's no verification.
No way.
You just post away, make another account. You're anonymous, essentially, which is always the craziest thing. When you also have to understand, like, the amount of things that people post online, it's like they just wouldn't say in real life.
Right.
And then you get into the whole personas of online personas and the online confidence and whatnot. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like, I think the internet is amazing, but it also is like a detriment type of thing.
Especially like, and I feel more like I have to say this now because the internet's continuing to change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, dead internet theory went from a meme to kind of a, hold on a second, is that maybe real now?
Yeah.
So I did want to express that, you know, we're going to enter this really interesting conversation about this fascinating space. And a lot of the stories and background information on the subreddit will be coming from the people themselves who share their dreams. And there are so many conversations around, this is what I experience. But I think what's going to be really interesting as we dive into this is that there's so many people, including one of our own researchers who we've worked with for quite some time, Kat Cardenas. She has experienced this, and she had no idea that this was a shared phenomenon. She's like, I thought this was just me.
What?
Yeah. And so we're going to explore kind of, as she wrote in our outline, you know, some of her experiences. But yeah, so a lot of people have come to this subreddit and go, please let this be real because I've experienced this and I really hope you guys aren't making this up. And a lot of people insist that it's real. And, you know, we've seen that. And heck, even if you're talking about a serial killer, we've got people that claim to be that. And so even when it's a true crime case, there's people out there fibbing. So,
oh yeah, it's just the way it is. Oddly enough, one of the things you learn listening to this podcast.
Yep. Now here's the thing. We could sell out. We could go real hard and just believe everything we ever are told. And I don't know if we would explode or not. Some people, it seems, do. But I love that really narrow lane where we lean in, we understand the story, and then especially through your lens, we poke and prod, we react to things. So that's kind of some of the background I wanted to set. This is a very fascinating topic, and I love dreams. You know, we've explored them in other episodes that I'll talk about here in a second. But as we dive in, as always, I want to give a huge shout out to our task force members over at redwebpod.com, the #1 way to support the show. Truly, it is the reason we're still going. We're coming up on our 1-year indie-versary.
Oof.
And our 5-year anniversary soon thereafter.
Yeah.
Which is gnarly. That's crazy.
It's not only that, like, people love Red Web so much, but then also, like, we're independent now and everyone is showing so much love and support that we're able to continue doing this.
Yeah, dude.
Because we couldn't without it.
Truly. So this week, I want to shout out Haste, who has been super active in the Discord. He's a buff scientist, so flex that brain. And of course, here we go. We got the squonks. Get out the hit list. Get your water guns out. Zachary Orr, Tucker did it, and Brett O'Mura this week. Thank you all so much. Head to redwebpod.com. See all the bonus stuff you get. Every single week, there's something else happening, sometimes more than weekly. So lots to digest over there. But with that, I want to dive into the endless halls of TheMallWorld. So r/TheMallWorld is a subreddit community dedicated to the shared dream phenomenon and a place of the same name, TheMallWorld. You know, we've talked about strange dreams during the Happy Valley Dream Survey. And within that, there's a growing attraction to the idea of strange dreams, shared dreams, this kind of outer consciousness, higher level of shared metaphysical realm.
Yep.
And not a lot of scientific data, to be completely honest. But I have such a deep fascination with the potential of that. You know, we did a whole episode even on sleep paralysis where Fredo, you and Christian and others have shared their experiences with sleep paralysis, which is scientific. Yeah. And what you've seen has been pretty crazy. It is scientifically understood, kind of like what is going on there and why. But one of the elements within that is like shadow entities, demons, things like the Hat Man. Now, that is a uniquely shared experience across the world and across cultures. And so that's what I love, is that we have something that we kind of understand, and then for some reason, people all around the world, without knowing about each other's experiences, are also experiencing the same image.
Right. It's weird, and like, I would say, like, is it hearsay because, like, did you hear something and then through like proxy?
Sure, you're primed for it or something.
Yeah, but it's hard to say because I know some people who have without hearing it from somebody else, and then there's my own experience where I haven't heard about like the Hat Man, didn't experience the Hat Man, then after hearing about the Hat Man, still haven't experienced the Hat Man, knock on wood.
Yeah, bless that.
But yeah, so it's really hard to tell.
And that's, I think, going to be the crux of some of the theories here, because this does land in the realm between some of the known and the unknown. And I think what's really going to be the crux of this topic is, beyond the fascination and the intrigue, is what is maybe explaining this? What is behind the scenes that we can scientifically evaluate that allows such a unique and interesting phenomenon to exist? And I think you're tapping into one of those, so keep that thread going as we explore what MallWorld is. But as you dive into the subreddit, it's essentially a collection of thousands of people who all have shared near identical experiences and locations within their dreams. It was created on September 23rd, 2021 by Reddit user Andy W. 2014, and since then it has amassed over 23,000 members. When looking a little closer, it's also interesting to let the users themselves explain the subreddit. And to them, it's kind of this dreamscape that many have visited or experienced in their dreams. And many of these accounts overlap with one another, like this very complex Venn diagram where, okay, we have very similar endless escalators and endless windows, but mine takes on a feel like this and yours is like this. And so we'll even talk about, like, there's a map that's been generated that puts all of these posts together in one geographical place. It's so interesting, yeah. And to look at the original creator, now this isn't the person who invented this concept. Andy W. 2014 actually says, quote, "I originally created this page to make sure I wasn't the only one experiencing this stuff." And they also said, just to be clear, MallWorld dreams don't have to be about an actual mall. They are any experiences that seem more realistic or more emotionally impactful than an ordinary dream or even waking life, end quote. So yes, it's definitely mostly focused on people seeing malls, but it's also kind of beyond that. It's also the shared dream experience. So I know we could have started at the top with your reactions.
Right.
I'm very curious, Have you ever had dreams like this, where it is a mall, or maybe you have recurring dreams of the same location? Or have you ever had a dream that you've shared with somebody else where you're like, oh my God, we were both in the same place? That's so like uncannily eerie.
No, I can't say that I have. Definitely not a mall. Definitely not like a shared dream.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've been told that I sometimes am very active when I'm sleeping, or even like talking in my sleep. And then I'll get asked, oh, like, what were you dreaming about? I have no idea. I don't remember a dream at all whatsoever.
Yeah.
So yeah, it ranges for sure.
Yeah. I think I've had a shared dream one time, and it was with my late cousin who, when we were kids, we were having a sleepover at my aunt and uncle's house, and we woke up, we shared the dream. He was filling in gaps, I was filling in gaps. And it's one of those things where I look back and I go, was it us being kids and being creative? Because at the time we were blowing each other's like minds going, do we have the same very unique dream where we're
right?
It was like constantly going through these various color portals and going down. Honestly, this actually starts to sound like MallWorld a little bit, but going down these various slides, because that's one of the things that happens in MallWorld.
Yeah.
But only like maybe once or twice in my life have I had recurring dreams. And when you have those, they really stand out. You remember every detail. And I don't know. There's something unique about that and how they make you feel when you wake up.
Yeah, no, I haven't experienced any of that. I mean, like waking up and then also just being like, oh, hey, I also too have had the same dream. That's just a wild concept to me.
So the specific details of MallWorld do vary from person to person, but it's mainly described as a large, ornate mall with seemingly perpetual floors, shops, attractions, and unsettling rules, or kind of the way of the world, how things work, giving many an air of mystery, but also dread. So when they wake up, a lot of people recognize that there is this feeling of dread or fear that overwhelms them. And I can't wait to talk about Kat's experience in particular, because she very vividly shares that same thing, where in the dream, she's very curious, she's looking around, but when she woke up, and she'd had this multiple times, it sounds like, she was filled with dread or fear, like she was in a place where she shouldn't have been. And it's only once you're awake where you realize that was really unsettling.
Yeah, that's weird. It's not a good feeling. Someone who's had sleep paralysis, like to wake up with that kind of, I don't know, this feeling, that those feelings as emotions, it's very jarring when you wake up for sure.
So one of the most prominent shared experiences in the mall world are escalators that seem never ending, in addition to elevators that are entirely made of glass and seem also countless in their own ways. We actually have an image that somebody shared on the subreddit that tries to capture this idea of endless escalators. I believe they used AI to generate this image for full transparency. Not a big fan of AI generating art. Just gonna put that out there. But for them to capture kind of what they were dreaming, this is what the user Great Psychology posted. And it kind of, I think, helps capture what they're thinking.
Wow. It looks like a very big mall. I don't know. This could be like just like a mall you see downtown San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just so many floors. But then when you start looking at it, there's weird, like, I don't know, like the escalators kind of match up oddly.
Yeah. I think, I'll be honest, I think that's the AI part of it. And so it looks a little cursed.
That makes sense.
Listen, I'll address it. I know that it is a very divisive topic. And I think my stance is, I feel like AI has no business creating things for people. I want it to be mowing my lawn. I want it to be washing my dishes.
Right.
But let's put the heated topic aside. But just for the sake of like what they're trying to visualize, they're trying to capture this idea of like an endless ceiling, you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of feet with escalators going up and up and up and up and up.
Yeah, it just keeps going vertically is what I'm looking at here.
Yeah. But this image in particular, definitely a little cursed.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
So those details are very much shared. Others have also stated that the elevators in their mall move very quickly. Like once they get into them, it's like they drop or rise very abruptly. They go in all different directions and they take them to floors where they have this feeling that they shouldn't be.
Ooh,
and that's where people start to, they start to feel out these laws of the land, so to speak, like this just natural, like, oh, I shouldn't be here feeling. And similarly, some have stated that they receive warnings against certain elevators or escalators. And I've heard actually some of the users, like realistic law, 1226. They posted in the subreddit stating, quote, "Found myself in the mall again last night by the food area and elevators. The elevators never seem to work right, and it's super scary." And they asked if anybody had a similar situation, but ultimately the comments are all filled with users agreeing, sharing what they've experienced. Bougie Banshee, the Reddit user, also said that they try to avoid these. They seem to be, the elevators at least go crazy fast in their words, and that they tend to go on the escalators because they're more reliable. And so this is where it starts to feel like it's building out lore. It's building out maybe.
Yeah. At this point, it's like, oh, there's a lot of detail that we're like going through here.
Yes. And I don't want to get ahead of myself. I think I did put this in the outline somewhere, but it makes sense here. Like, some people have messed around with certain stores or escalators or what have you. And what's interesting is I always thought that these were completely empty spaces based on what I was seeing, what I was reading. But some people experience just somebody, a person being there. So maybe there's some entities in this arena, but yelling at them, telling them not to do a certain thing. Hey, don't mess with that, or don't go in there. And so there almost seems to be some sort of guard or some sort of person or entity that kind of watches over this place.
Right.
But they basically get this sense of getting trapped in the elevators. And that's a shared idea, and it starts to stoke the flames of an ARG, an alternate reality game.
Yeah, it starts to, and everyone's dropping their own piece of lore, and then everyone sees someone gets excited about that, and then they start dropping theirs, and everyone wants to kind of like one-up themselves essentially in their stories.
And that's why I'm so fascinated by people that go, yeah, I've had this. I really hope you guys aren't doing that, because I've felt this so vividly just on my own before I heard about this. And so that's the little sliver. That's that nugget I'm going for. Like, how are some people feeling this way? Is
Right.
this an ARG built off something that is unique and is interesting? I don't know. We'll talk about some of the theories. But as we continue to build out this idea, though, some people see the mall as a much more futuristic aesthetic. And it's so expansive that they get this sense that it's its own city, that it might go on forever. Some people see that there are large features like an airport attached. Some people think that this whole mall is in the middle of a forest, and some people experience it as like a coastal town. So they're in the mall, and then suddenly the mall just opens up to a wall, and you're at the beach, and there's an ocean and a cliff face, and you're seeing cruise ships in the distance. And it's developed so much, and there's so much overlap between all these experiences that Redditors have started to create a map of their dreamscapes. They're like, okay, you have the mountains, but my mountains have ice on them, or you're seeing valleys, but my valleys are endless and pitless, right?
Right.
And so there was actually, and this is where I have another image for you to check out, the Reddit user Anonymous Mute Kittens kind of collated all of the images from the subreddit and pasted them onto kind of a map where you have in the west some frosty mountains with an icy town on the other side.
So expansive. We write novels?
I know. But then you have an alcove, like a bay with an ocean. You have what looks like either a valley or like a bottomless pit over to the east. And then they paste on that map, okay, here's this user, here's that user, here's their screenshot. I don't know. It's
a luxury seaside home and
exactly. But it starts to like show all of the, yes, traditional malls, but in addition to that, some people are seeing things that lean a little bit more hotel or more water park or more amusement rides. And again, we'll talk about this in the theories, but it starts to have the same energy of the internet's back rooms, where there are endless water slides that go off into oblivion. You have hallways that are just liminal spaces that, just feel haunted.
I also feel, and it's not like a negative thing, but like it could feed itself. You know what I'm saying? When you're in that mindset and you're experiencing these endless hallways from there, it's just like feeding into itself and your creativity or your fears, your emotions, and then it starts to expand. And that's how you get all this kind of like lore we're talking about.
Absolutely. I mean, that is totally valid. It might start in an authentic place. You have other people coming in to role play, RP as they say online, or build out this world because it self-feeds. You're totally right. Because once you are validated in the sense that other people are seeing what you're seeing, you might be more inclined to dream it because you're thinking about it and you're part of a community. You're totally right. And I can't wait to kind of, once we get through some of the more descriptions and experiences, to kind of explore those theories that psychologically might help answer why this phenomenon happens, how people have these shared experiences, because again, it starts to move from metaphysical into oh, we can break this down. We can understand this. And that's, I love that sweet spot. So Puppies for Prez, wonderful username. They even said with regards to this map, they said, quote, "This is wild because this is super accurate to how I experience everything there." So again, just more people sharing their experiences, kind of validating each other's visions and what have you. But now I want to talk about the feeling of familiarity. And many commenters have that are described in their posts. You know, this feeling that they've been there before, they know how to navigate it. They, even though it's endless, they just have this sense. It's like Severance. Mark just knows where to go, even though it's a left, right, turn, right, turn, left, right.
That's true. That's true. Sometimes he has a little note or something like that. But a lot of times I'm like, how the hell everything is the same?
Right. And this is where I know you're going to appreciate this. This is where the community started to get tangible. Okay. They wanted to do some analysis. Reddit user Bookworm BOTPH conducted a visitor analysis survey that they called, and they asked various people from the subreddit about their experiences. And I will say, to be totally honest, the sample size is 171, so it's tight, so it might be biased towards the people more engaged. However, within that survey, answers showed that 81.3% of users agreed with the statement, quote, "When I am dreaming in the mall world, I see specific locations that are seen over multiple dreams, or areas that I've been before that are geographically consistent over time, which I can use to reliably navigate," end quote. So if they see a mountain with a tree to the right, they always see that tree there.
Right.
If they see a hallway that twists to the left and goes back right and then left again, it always stays like that, which for me is completely unfamiliar. Anytime I'm in a dream, if I'm going upstairs, they turn into treadmills.
Yeah, exactly. Like I mean, it's cool though, because as someone who's very visual, like I could not tell you, the house that I grew up in, like the name of the street 2 blocks down, but I can give you a visual description of what it looks like and where everything is placed. And
Yeah.
so like I get and I understand that kind of perspective. And it's honestly weirdly comforting, the fact that like it's something you can rely on, is like the visuals. It's not constantly shifting, even though it may be confusing, it's consistent. And even though it may be ever expanding, you have some familiarity.
Sure. And we can talk about it. Is the brain making the reality and you subscribe to the truth of it, and so it continues
100%.
to render the same thing? Or is it the opposite direction, right? There's a fun way to talk about it both ways. But ultimately, my curiosity lied in the realm of, okay, if there is a deep familiarity here, is it from people having this as a recurring dream, which makes sense? Or is it the experience of somebody having this for the first time? Like if I go to bed tonight and I dream of the mall world, will I have suddenly this really eerie sense of familiarity? I couldn't decipher between the two, and it seems like it's more the former and less so the latter. This place doesn't have a mystical familiarity to it as much as it is repeating for people, and that's where it comes from.
This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Rocket Money. When it comes to spending, sometimes it's out of sight, out of mind. That daily coffee habit, those streaming subscriptions, they add up fast without you even noticing. Rocket Money helps you spot those patterns so you can do something about them and keep more money in your pocket. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. See all of your subscriptions in one place and know exactly where your money is going. For ones you don't want anymore, Rocket Money can help you cancel them. I know that I have a lot of subscriptions that I have just forgotten about over the years, and Rocket Money did such a good job of helping me figure out what I still had going so I could figure out how much I was spending unnecessarily. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when they use all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Download the Rocket Money app and enter our show name Red Web in the survey so they know we sent you. Don't wait. Download the Rocket Money app today and tell them you heard about them from our show. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Shady Rays. Get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Plus, if your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by lost or broken replacements. If you don't love your shades, exchange for a new pair or return worry-free within 30 days. I am super happy with my Shady Rays, especially down here in Austin, Texas. We're getting into the warmer months, the sunnier months, so I'm always looking for a reason to protect my eyes and rock some good shades while doing so. Exclusively for Task Force members, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal. Head to shadyrays.com and use code REDWEB for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people.
But moving on, talking about more of the sensations and feelings have. I kind of got ahead of myself, but upon waking up, many users report feeling anxious, unsettled, or generally uneasy about what they experienced. Not having those feelings in the dream, only when they wake up does reality kind of set in a little bit and they start to go, hold on a second, everything was wrong. Why was I curious instead of like as terrified as I am now?
I mean, maybe just because you're like, you haven't quite realized, right? You're in this trance in a sense.
Yeah, dude.
Right.
When you wake up, you kind of get a little bit more sober. You have this dream brain. I've always described it as like, I got an idiot dream brain. It just like thinks things. 2 + 2 = fish. And that is logic. But then I wake up and I go, what am I talking about?
Right. I think it's just like your brain trance that you're in. And then from there, it's just like you wake up and reality starts to set in and different senses and sounds possibly set in, and then you realize the things that seemed so normal were actually far out there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So now this is a great opportunity to dive into our writer's note here. This comes directly from Kat Cardenas, who has stepped in periodically to help us research some of our mysteries over the years. She and us go way back. And so what was really, really funny though, is when Christian's working with her and we kind of give her TheMallWorld as one of her first internet mysteries to kind of break down and analyze. She starts going, wait a minute, I have this experience. Hold on. So TheMallWorld found her somehow, right?
Yeah.
In her dream and then in reality. And so I'm going to quote her here. I'm going to turn all of her eyes into she, but here's what she said. So she has had several experiences with the so-called mall world, and she didn't realize that it was something that other people had also experienced. As she was reading through the subreddit, she saw others' experiences, and her dream mall shares many of the same qualities. She hasn't dreamt about the mall in quite some time, but as a child, it was one of the reoccurring dreams that she would have. And every time she'd had it, it was the exact same mall. It didn't look the same to any of the malls that she had actually been to, so it wasn't the same as her local mall. There's none of that reality seeping into the dream. It's its own unique thing that she is seeing the same thing of, if that makes sense. It is its own mall that she keeps seeing.
Okay, yeah.
She can recall escalators that seem to go on for miles, and the mall itself was akin to a small city. Specifically, she remembers being in an unnamed shoe store where the walls were hundreds of feet high, right? The shelves just went and there were shoe boxes stacked on top of one another all the way from the floor to the several 100-foot ceiling. And in the dream, she said she never felt scared or in danger. She was very curious, wanted to wander around, look at things. But then after she woke up, she felt deeply unsettled for what she felt like was no reason. Like she couldn't put her finger on it, but there was something deeply unsettling to it. And maybe that's just an uncanny valley sort of thing.
Right.
It's a familiar place with like these crooked, like AI art.
Yeah.
But like, you know what I mean? Like dreams do that. They bend that reality. As we come to a close on the background information, man, hold on. I gotta pause on that because that's just so cool to me.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
How Kat's experience, almost all the details just mirror what we're seeing on this subreddit.
Yeah, they do. Which is a little, it's pretty wild. Where it's like, oh, and I guess, you know, it's for Kat not to know really what that was and then go, oh, that's what that is.
Yeah, unless she's yanking our chain and she's like, this is an ARG and I am in.
Yeah, and I am so in. Yeah, they have no idea.
Yeah, she's actually Andy W 2014. She made the subreddit.
That's just wild to me.
Yeah, dude, it really is. And again, whether we can debunk it, so to speak, with science and logic and psychological phenomenon or not, I am in love with this type of oddity. I don't know.
Yeah, same.
So as we come to a close on the background information, this is where I want to talk about the heavy similarities between the backrooms, liminal spaces, and MallWorld, because they've all kind of really popularized in recent internet years. So some have claimed that the MallWorld actually predates the phenomenon known as the backrooms. And the backrooms kind of are a thing now. It's more of a genre, but it started as a creepypasta that got popular in 2019 on 4chan. And it's described as a series of poorly lit empty rooms that just inherently feel eerie or off. They're like familiar textures, carpets, yellow walls, wallpaper. Right. It's kind of decrepit and it goes on forever and it's an endless maze. And somehow it feels familiar, but the absence of anything else, no furniture, no people, no windows, is what makes it really eerie. And that brings us to another similar phenomenon of that of liminal spaces. Have you ever heard of these things before?
No, I've heard of living spaces.
They got couches on couches. Yes, sir. They got some good stuff. Living spaces. If you ever need to sponsor anything, and I know you
really?
don't,
they got good stuff there?
Get in here.
Oh, damn.
We've gotten couches from there, and they last ages. Huge shout out. But please, we could use a sponsor. Anyway, I'm calling.
Genuine sponsorship.
Please. So liminal spaces are places that would typically be very busy or full of people, a mall, a school, anything like that, even a beach. But instead of being filled with people, they have everything else you normally expect, the cash register, the furniture, the shopping goods and retail, but instead they're completely empty. There's no people. And this lack of people gives, again, that very strange, even alien at times feeling. It's that uncanny valley of, I've never seen this space empty. Like if you've ever been at school after hours and the lights are kind of dim and no one's around, you're like, this is just wrong. Like,
yeah, it just feels weird. It's eerie. You start seeing things in like the corner, or oh god, my thing is like down the hall. You just keep waiting for something to creep down the hall.
Yeah,
around a corner. Ugh.
I think that's why my big phobia is having my back to a long, dark hallway. You don't know what's down there, and my brain always wants to hear distant but quick footsteps that are like sprinting at you.
Like, I hate it, dude. It's not good.
Yeah. So this has also been a very popular concept because of that uncanny valley experience. It's just unsettling, and some people indulge in that. It's its own form of scary or horror. So a lot of people have described their mall dreams as being very liminal spaces coded. And so that's kind of related here. But predating this specific subreddit are forums that go back to 2008. There are records online of people talking about their experiences in places like the MallWorld, sharing this idea. And so it is a which one created the other? Are they similar phenomenons that all rose together? Either way, they've super tapped into something on the internet, and people are in love with them.
Yes, they are.
I know I am. So we're going to dive into the theories in a second, but I love that Kat put this in here too as one of her extra pieces. So can you visit the MallWorld? Some Redditors have actually theorized it's possible to intentionally lucid dream, right? That's when you are aware you're dreaming and therefore you can control it. Dude, I've had a dream within a dream before. It was like Inception. I woke up and I said, I'm still dreaming. And then I woke up again.
I used to have dreams, and this is a common dream for people who wet the bed. It's a dream where, and this used to happen when I was like younger. Okay, no joke. It's serious. I'm serious. Someone out there is like, oh, this happens to me too. You're going to the restroom, right? In the middle of the night. You wake up, you go to the restroom, and you're just standing over the toilet going, this is real. Like, this is not a dream. This is real. I'm actually at the toilet.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I can use the restroom. And then you wake up and piss.
Dude, I've been there. I've been there so many times as a kid too, where you're like, you're in that dream, you believe it's real, and you're like, man, I've been peeing for what feels like 5 minutes.
Yeah. It always feels like the longest pee of your life, too.
Like, why am I still peeing? Hold on. That's because I'm dreaming. And you go, no. And you wake up and you go, and everything's destroyed.
Dude, yup. Yep, it sucks. And you just it's like you lie to yourself too. You're like, no, this isn't a dream. I'm actually here at the toilet, ready to nope, piss the bed. Damn, man, what is that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's thankfully my body for long since then has been like, when you gotta go, you wake up and then I zombie over and whatever. But
yeah, I always make sure not to drink too many liquids before I go to bed, just out of fear. Just out of fear of
we're all traumatized from 5-year-old selves or whatever age.
Dude, so traumatized, man.
Yeah. So either way, that aside, there have been people that say that, hey, you could astral project or even lucid dream, kind of the out-of-body experience, astral project, where that's how you can access this potentially metaphysical area. That's starting to get into a different theory or a specific theory. So some think that this might be a plane that exists out there that when we dream, we tap into, but you might be able to consciously get there. And reception on this idea has been quite mixed. Some users claim that once they're lucid dreaming, it's almost like they're shaken out of it, that they are no longer able to penetrate the concept of the TheMallWorld, even if they try really, really hard.
Interesting.
I've also gone through my own bout of trying to lucid dream. It takes quite some time of actual trying, but it's very cool. But there's times where you get a little excited or your brain starts to get too awake, and it's almost like the Matrix when the world falls out below you. I was pulled up into a white void and I was like, I'm losing the dream. And then I woke up. And I imagine trying to get somewhere very, very specific and concentrating too much can kind of shatter that very fragile sleep state.
Yeah, probably. You're probably just like, I don't know, it's being forced, you know what I mean? As opposed to like naturally being in there. Because again, it's you're using your mind. So your mind is probably subconsciously knowing that this is forced. And so.
But other people have said, yes, I can get there when I lucid dream. But the odd thing is, everything feels different. Almost as if the TheMallWorld knows you're consciously aware. And it's like, we shouldn't allow conscious brains into this arena.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're too conscious of what's happening here. You don't have access. Get out of here.
Yes. And so again, then you enter the realm of like you getting pulled out or even thrown out of the TheMallWorld in some way. But I don't know exactly how strange it gets. It all depends on the person, but that things are just different. But beyond that, I think what stands to interest is that lucid dreaming aside, when people are in this place, they can read things and they can do things that they don't feel like they can normally do in dreams. Like, I think one of the checks for if you're dreaming or not to trigger lucid dreaming is light switches. In a dream, they normally don't work. If you look in a mirror, your face is going to be a little weird. If you try to read something, it's usually gibberish.
I guess, yeah, I don't think I've ever in a dream flipped a light switch or looked at a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Ever. Now that I think about it.
Yeah. So that's how I triggered lucid dreaming. I said, every night as I went to bed, I said, I'm going to go flip the light switch. I just kind of thought about that.
Right.
And so if I ever ended up in a room, I'd try to make it a habit to go, ooh, let me go hit that light switch.
I never thought about that.
But what's weird is when you try to lucid dream, you kind of can't make it into the TheMallWorld. But when you are dreaming and you're there, it operates in a way that dreams don't. I don't know, right? That starts to get into the personal experience of it all. But with that said, let's dive into some of the theories. 2 of these come from my gut instinct. I feel like, I don't want to toot my own horn. I feel like I've got it deconstructed. I'm very curious on your thoughts. But the first one we're going to start off with, as we like to do, is taking this at face value. Is there something here and how can we try to explain it? So many have raised the question of how it could be possible for so many people from so many different cultures and environments around the world to have the same dream. To answer this question, many have pointed to Carl Jung and his idea of the collective unconscious. So he was a Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst who founded analytical psychology, and Jung believed that due to the very structure of the human brain, humanity as a whole shares a collective unconscious, and that the unconscious contains different archetypes that are universal. Now, this would be separate from each person's personal unconscious, which is tailored by their experiences in life, everything that they go through. But again, this is a theory, but this is kind of what he was saying, and this is what a lot of people point to, is that, okay, we have our own consciousness, we have our own unconsciousness, but what he's saying is maybe there's something different that we can all tap into collectively, And maybe that is where the mall world and shared dreams come from. Does that make sense?
Yes. Kind of like a hub.
Kind of like a hub.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of the concept of the Akashic Records, which is this idea that there is another plane that we can all access, which is a library of all information and all knowledge that humanity has ever and will ever access. That these records exist like a library in some sort of unconscious space. Maybe we'll explore that someday. But boiling it all down, the idea here, the theory, is that the mall world is a manifestation of modern-day collective unconscious, a meeting place that most everyone grew up with and grew up knowing and visiting in their dreams, whether we remember it or not.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. Just like a big hub, shared conscious place.
Maybe when we all dream, we live a separate life. And in that life, you and me recording this episode, Task Force Listening, we're the dream, you know,
Right.
and they forget that we are on this podcast or whatever. And then, I don't know, there's tons of people that explore like fringe theories like that, and they're all really fascinating.
Yeah, but it's, I don't know. I feel like something like that, we would all, there'd be some sort of breakthrough by now that gives some sort of like.
What if there's a block and it forces you to not remember?
I feel like kicking the goalpost step further down.
True,
You
right?
know?
Get closer to an answer, you shift the definition.
Yeah. But man, that'd be pretty wild.
Okay, so these next two, I don't want to say are uniquely mine. I think some of the theories tap into these elements, but I'm trying to put in my experiences and my understanding about certain things in here. So let's talk now about the next theory, the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon. All right, so you've probably heard of this before, whether you know it or not. Per Psychology Today, quote, the frequency illusion, also called the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon, is a cognitive bias in which someone learns a novel concept or word and then suddenly, seemingly, encounters it everywhere, whereas in fact, it is more salient because it has been recently observed. I mean, you even tapped into this earlier in the episode. Maybe this started as an experience that you had, but now that you're aware of it, you're just seeing your dream and everyone else's dreams. Maybe we all have shared dreams and it's just the odds. There are
Right.
billions of people, you know, and we
Right.
all are going to share something a little bit. There's another Alfredo Diaz out there and he might look just like you.
He could. There's just so many people, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
There's just so many people, so there are going to be, I don't know, you can only make so many different nose types, face types.
Mm-hmm.
And then who's to say, yeah, I mean, there's only so many different ways a person can think, only so many different personality mixtures. And so, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So if you distill it down, and this isn't just disarm the intrigue of it, but it's to help explain it. It's not odd for one person to dream of a mall. And maybe you share that very vivid, unique, strange dream with a friend, and it causes them to reflect, and they go, you know what? I also had a similar dream one time. And then you start to ask more people, and it snowballs, right? You start to notice it more. And then maybe you create a subreddit where now millions of people have access to this subreddit, and they can also start to reflect on their experiences. And then thousands of them filter in, they share their experience, and then they start to create this community where now it's much more vivid, much more built, and then almost becomes self-fulfilling, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. And we were talking about that. I was talking about that earlier, right? Self-fulfilling and self-expanding.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I feel like this is like one of those things where you could just like literally just chill out and just talk about it for hours, dude. And then just, I don't know, man, just theory craft like crazy in like a group tank.
Yeah. Yep. You know, you could process the meaning of life. You could process the meaning of mall world and why we're all going there. And are there any coupons or discounts I need to know about, right?
Yeah.
This is kind of like Task Force HQ. This is like our nebulous headquarters where we record the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
587 levels and growing,
Oh, yeah, it's
subterranean,
huge.
all around the world, each of them burrowing down to the core. So we can then make one hub, right? Where they can all share an elevator. But that's kind of what it feels like. But I don't know. You know, you create that subreddit and it starts to add more weight to it. But I think this might also dovetail into this next theory, which is, again, now this one's definitely more out of my pocket because I've lived long enough to see very, very heavy, vivid mall use. I've also lived through what's known as the retail apocalypse of the 2010s as malls started to shift and decline. So let's talk about all of this. The concept of dead malls. So what stands out to me the most about these experiences is the striking similarities. They transcend age, environment, geographical locations, because mall layouts, aesthetics, and store types all differ by the climate you're in, the location you're in. But they've also changed over the years. And maybe that answers for these unique shifts. You have the beach one, the mountain one, etc. But they're all still malls. And as I'm exploring all of these posts, I'm scrolling through, I'm trying to grab more comments and more data points. This got me thinking about the concept of dead malls. You might have heard it as zombie malls or ghost malls.
Right.
Very popular given the recent pandemic, right? A couple years ago. But these are malls where the foot traffic has dropped to essentially zero. Maybe there's no foot traffic in their stores, or maybe the stores are starting to disappear, or maybe the mall itself is starting to decay. In some way, the mall is fading, and it's not what it once was, right?
I mean, there's been a lot of videos on TikTok that I see where it's just people exploring these dead malls. And they're just endless. And then they go into I don't know, this backdoor room, and that expands into these halls that go for a mile. And it's like, oof, that's a eerie place to explore, but also I'm hooked.
I know. There's something so really cool about urban exploring.
Yeah, it's really actually pretty cool.
If it wasn't so terrifying.
Yeah.
There's the real terror of going into an illegal place, law enforcement, or I don't know, still water, stagnant water, and other
health risks.
Yeah, fungi, black mold and whatever else. But I love those videos of people exploring those. And you'll see malls go several floors down into a basement, and you're like, I had no idea this existed. Or there's dead malls under living malls. It's wild. So these dead malls really started to pick up steam during the so-called retail apocalypse of the kind of last decade. And then it was greatly exacerbated by COVID-19 when many malls and physical stores all across the world had to close during 2020. And then as I started to think about it, I'm like, okay, yes, some of these stories go back to forums in 2008, but the arrival of this subreddit being in 2021, it's kind of maybe this was a product of the zeitgeist. There's so many reporters and news stories talking about malls closing, having a lot of fear. Oh, are certain businesses that have been staples for decades going to go completely bankrupt? Yeah. I mean, that was a very vivid conversation, I believe, during the March, April timeframe when the market's crashing and stores are literally closing over these months. At least for recent years, you can answer for maybe that's why it's penetrated the psyche. Maybe that's why people start to dream about it. And then with the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon or people finding each other online, it starts to take on a bigger meaning than maybe there actually is. So it starts somewhere real and then elevates and evolves into something really interesting.
Yeah, no, it really does. And I think that going back to malls, I feel generation after generation, it's becoming less of a thing. You know what I mean? And so also in theory too, it's wait, younger, newer generations, is it still going to be this whole thing about lucid dream hubbing in a mall? Or does it shift from there?
Ooh, where would it shift to? Because when like you're saying, when we were kids, malls were the third space. You have work, school, home, right? Whatever it is. But then that third space is the recreational.
Yeah. The mall is a place to hang out. You always going to the mall during the weekends. Then when you got older, you got dropped off. You hung out at the mall. That was a place where it's oh yeah, you can hang out at the mall with your friends.
Yeah. And
you could spend hours at the mall chilling. And so it's with malls, shutting down or becoming less lucrative, half empty malls, whatnot. I feel newer generations are buying stuff online. What does that place become? I mean, you still got outdoor mall, a strip mall, or what do you call them? The outdoor malls, Domain.
Yeah, I feel I've always heard them as outlet malls, but that's primarily because the few that I've been to were all in Florida, and those were outlet malls in particular.
Right.
I don't know if there's a definition, to be totally honest. Task Force, let us know if you know, but yeah, outdoor malls are certainly still pretty common. There's malls here in Austin I've been to, and I know kids kick it, at the food court, getting their amazing Sbarro pizzas.
Yeah.
Their Panda's Express.
Oh,
but
shit.
It's probably less common, but I do still like seeing it. It's still kind of a nostalgic vibe. But yeah, that's a very interesting question. Task Force, let us know in the Discord. Yeah. Where do you think the next mall world will be? Is it going to be basement world? You know, I mean, we had that too. Maybe it'll be phone world. Everything is just one big phone. Maybe it'll just be Tron and we'll be on the grid.
Yeah, we're all just on the grid. I remember just growing up too, just a little bit to continue this tangent, where it's like, oh, too much TV, too much TV. Now I'm like, I'd rather have someone watching TV than just scrolling on like Instagram reels for hours.
Yes. And you know what the dangerous thing is? The scary thing, I should say, is what's the next thing where you go, man, I wish at least I'm scrolling and I'm not doing that. Because I'll show you the evolution. It was, you know, there's literature, there's nonfiction, there's studying, and there's working. And over the years, then like fictional books started to come out and people are like reading for entertainment. And they're like, that's going to rot your brain. You're getting a story fed to you instead of making your own story or living your own life. You got to drop those books down and go do something else, go play outside. And then it became, cutting forward many centuries and decades and whatnot, you have TV. Stop watching TV, stop watching movies, go read a book. Oh, wait a minute, I thought that was the bad thing. And then it's like,
true,
you're playing your video games. Why don't you go at least watch TV, you know?
Yeah.
And then you start scrolling on your phone. And you're like, well, why don't you go play video games or something else? And, you know, it's always yesterday's, you know, thing.
Is it at that point just going to be not essentially like I put on a massive VR thing, but like, you know, if just augmented reality, little like glasses, shades, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, like a pair of just regular sunglasses that you can augment reality, and then you can see your text pop up and you can see stories, and everyone's just got these glasses on, even when they're indoors and they're chilling and they're just constantly like, I guess instead of like looking down at your phone, the evolution would be that like no matter where you look, you're still connected.
Oh, ads everywhere, dude. That's like Wall-E, but worse, you know?
Yeah.
Dude, that's
Wall-E,
wild.
everyone's just like kind of floating around. They don't have to physically do anything.
You're like, hold on a second. There's an ad on your face. Let me like.
That's scary.
Yeah, you're like, let me go to the. I'm gonna go to my VR room, Ready Player One style. I'm gonna go visit Disney World real quick.
Yeah.
You know. And what's after that? Maybe you take a bite of a moon landing. You know, you take a pill and it tastes like going to the moon. The whole experience.
Oh my god.
So like. Yeah. In a split second, you can have your brain downloaded with the experience of what it's like to go skydiving. Or wouldn't that be crazy? That's like the Matrix stuff. Like, I need to learn how to ride a motorcycle or fly a helicopter.
Yeah, I'm about to say, at what point am I saving up so I can like eat and ingest and download a new skill set that I didn't have before? Like 100%.
I just got my Super Bowl pills in, so I'm gonna go win Super Bowl 50 real quick. I'll be right back. Go.
Yeah.
Whoa, I'm going to Disney World. All right, one more theory here. This one's pretty simple, straightforward. Straight up, the idea of multidimensional dreams. You know, several Redditors within the mall world and around it have discussed the idea that the mall world itself might actually be a physical location, and that maybe we're visiting it via that astral projection or whatever happens when we dream, right? We start to get into that fringe ideology, but maybe it's in another dimension that we can only access while we sleep. And you have users like Mark B9 who theorize that this is kind of like the upside down. You know, he shared his thoughts that, you know, maybe this is just, we all recognize malls and therefore we dream them. Or maybe it's kind of like the upside down from Stranger Things. And maybe this is just a place that we all get to escape to sometime. And some of us remember it. And it's kind of a shared memory because of that. Maybe it's a construct of our unconsciousness while we're asleep.
I don't feel like I want to be that connected to someone or strangers.
Yeah, you block somebody on social and then you see them in the mall in your dreams. You're like, I'm sorry, I try to just disconnect a little bit, you know?
Right. I mean, that's where my head's at.
That's really interesting. The idea that like there's a shared consciousness I've always thought is fascinating, but I've never thought of it like that. The other side. Maybe I need a little bit of privacy, you know? Like, what if I don't want to be tapped into like that?
Yeah.
And what if the CIA through Project Stargate can dabble with that and start to scoop into your life a little bit? Okay. Well, I'm getting off the rails, but these ideas are out there.
Yeah, no, they are.
Well, this has been the interesting subreddit known as TheMallWorld. Any final thoughts as we come to a close on this really interesting topic?
No, I just think it's just like, man, you can just have this discussion for hours and hours and hours.
I think I'm going to carry this into the break room. I know we're live streaming that this Wednesday. It will come out here now in May as a VOD, the second episode. But man, yeah, I feel like we got to keep talking about this. It's so interesting.
Yeah, you just keep talking and expanding on it. And I'm sure there's adjacent kind of like mysteries or things that also you can expand into as well.
Totally. All right, Task Force. Well, if you want to join us for any break room, we stream that recording every month. We post that on social media so you know it's coming. But if you want to be part of the conversation, join us at redwebpod.com, where you can either join the podcast as it's streaming, as it's live, or you can listen to it after it's posted. But either way, lots happening over there every single week, and it's the number one way to support us. You can also review us wherever you listen to podcasts. Chuck us a 5 stars, leave us a little message, and maybe someday in the future we'll do a little fan mail show, and we'll read those. But with that said, Fredo, I'll see you right back here next Monday for yet another mystery.